It all started like a whisper, an interview that no one expected to turn into a storm. For years, Yaman's father had stayed away from the spotlight, refusing to comment on his son's fame, his work, or the endless stories about his love life. But that morning, when he finally spoke, the world stopped to listen. Sitting across from a well-known journalist in Istanbul, his eyes carried the calm of a man who had seen too much, who had chosen silence not because he didn't care, but because he knew words had power. And then he said it, quietly but clearly, "Demet is the only one I ever trusted." The room went silent. Even the reporter seemed to forget the next question. Cameras were rolling, yet what filled the air wasn't just news, it was emotion. The internet exploded within minutes. Clips of that single sentence were everywhere: Twitter, YouTube, Instagram Reels looping endlessly. People couldn't believe it. For years, fans had wondered what Can's family really thought of Demet Özdemir. Rumors had said they were distant, that his father never approved. But this changed everything. Behind the scenes, sources said Can himself hadn't known his father would speak. He was in Rome, filming a commercial, when his phone began buzzing non-stop. At first, he ignored it. But when his assistant whispered, "You need to see this," he stopped everything. He watched the clip in silence, his expression unreadable. The line replayed again and again, "Demet is the only one I ever trusted." Those words weren't just about admiration, they were loaded with history. People close to the family remembered the early days, when Demet was still part of Can's world, not just in work but in life. His father had seen her kindness, her loyalty, how she stood by Can through the chaos of fame. And even after everything fell apart, he had never forgotten that. By the end of that day, major magazines were running headlines: Can Yaman's father defends Demet, she never lied. Some called it an olive branch, others saw it as a confession of regret. Whatever it was, it struck deep. Because for the first time, someone from Can's inner circle had admitted what fans had long suspected, that no one had ever understood him like she did. That evening, Demet herself saw the clip. She didn't react publicly, didn't post or comment. But those who know her said she went quiet for hours, lost in thought. Because sometimes the most powerful things aren't said between lovers, they're said about them, long after love is gone. Within hours, the quote had become global news. Every outlet from Rome to Madrid, from Istanbul to Buenos Aires, had the same headline: Can Yaman's father breaks his silence, and mentions Demet. TV hosts replayed the moment in slow motion, analyzing every blink, every pause. Some said it was a sign of reconciliation. Others claimed it revealed a hidden truth, that despite all the noise, the bond between Demet and the Yaman family had never truly been broken. Can stayed silent. No interviews, no posts, no statements. His team was flooded with calls, but he refused to speak. He spent the day avoiding everyone, leaving the set early and driving aimlessly through the streets of Rome. A witness said he stopped at a cafe by the sea, sat alone, ordered Turkish tea, and kept watching the waves as if searching for something he had lost years ago. People close to him described his mood as unsettled. One friend said, "It wasn't anger. It was emotion." Because when your father says something you've spent years trying to forget, it hits differently. Meanwhile, Demet's name began trending worldwide. Fans were divided. Some were touched by the father's words, others warned her not to go back down that path. But Demet didn't respond. No interviews, no statements, not even a subtle story on Instagram. Just silence, the same kind of silence that once existed between her and Can after their last goodbye. But sources close to her revealed that the words had reached her deeply. One insider shared, she didn't cry when she heard it. She just whispered, "He remembered." That's all she said, he remembered. Behind the scenes, media pressure on Can grew intense. Producers wanted a comment, brands wanted clarity. Yet he remained quiet. That evening, however, something unexpected happened. He liked a fan page post that showed an old photo of him and Demet laughing on set, with the caption, "They were more than co-stars. They were a story." It was a tiny gesture, but it was enough to send the internet into chaos. Screenshots flew everywhere. People began saying, "He's speaking without words." Back in Istanbul, Can's father reportedly turned off his phone. He hadn't meant to start a storm. He had simply spoken the truth as he saw it. To him, Demet wasn't just part of Can's past, she was the one person who had loved his son when he was still just a man, not a star. The line that had started as a whisper was now an earthquake shaking two countries. But for Can and Demet, it was something much quieter, a memory coming back to life. The world had been waiting for a response, and when it came, it wasn't what anyone expected. After days of silence, Can finally broke it, not through a press release, not in an interview, but with a post. A single photo. No caption. Just a dimly lit image of his father's hands holding an old photo album, one that fans immediately recognized from years ago, the same album that had once been seen on the set of Erkenci Kuss, filled with behind-the-scenes memories of him and Demet. Within minutes, the internet exploded. Fans zoomed into every pixel, searching for meaning. In one corner of the album, a photo was clearly visible, Demet smiling, caught mid-laugh, her hand resting on Can's shoulder. It wasn't nostalgia. It was a statement. Journalists called it a silent confession. Others said it was a message to his father, "You're right, Baba, she was different." For the first time, it seemed as if Can wasn't running from his past anymore. Meanwhile, Demet saw the post, too. A close friend revealed that she didn't believe he'd actually done it at first. She said, "He posted that? Himself?" And then she went quiet. She looked at the photo and said, "He never forgets the things that matter." That same night, in a quiet neighborhood of Istanbul, Can's father reportedly sat on his balcony, watching the news coverage on TV. When asked by a family friend if he regretted speaking out, he smiled and replied, "No. Some truths need to breathe again." By morning, the world had turned their quiet family moment into a global story. Entertainment networks were calling it the reunion without words. The emotion behind those old photos, that single sentence, "Demet is the only one I ever trusted," had reignited something the world thought was long gone. But for Can, it wasn't about headlines anymore. It was about closure, or maybe rediscovery. Because for the first time in years, he wasn't angry when he heard Demet's name. He just smiled. And that, more than anything, told the world that sometimes, silence says everything words never could. Days passed, but the world couldn't let it go. Every entertainment site, every gossip magazine kept asking the same question, would Demet respond? She hadn't spoken, hadn't posted, hadn't even liked anything online since Can's photo appeared. But then, one quiet evening, everything changed. On her Instagram, a single story appeared, a blurred photo of a seaside sunset. And in small white letters, a quote, "Some truths don't need to be defended. They just wait to be remembered." No names, no emojis, no location. But everyone knew who it was about. Within minutes, her name was trending worldwide again. Fans flooded the comments, "She answered him, they're still connected, this is their language." Because everyone who had followed their story over the years knew that silence had always been their way of speaking when words failed. Back in Rome, Can saw it too. He didn't repost it, didn't comment, but he sent one private message, short and simple, he meant what he said. And so did I. That message, insiders said, was the first time he had reached out to her directly in almost 2 years. No drama, no anger, just honesty. And for Demet, that was enough. She didn't reply, but she didn't delete his message either. Meanwhile, Can's father gave one final interview weeks later, this time not to stir headlines, but to bring peace. When asked if he still stood by what he said, he smiled and replied softly, "Yes." Because trust isn't about time. It's about truth. And Demet, she always had that. There was no bitterness in his voice, only gratitude. He wasn't defending the past. He was honoring it. And in that moment, the world realized this wasn't a story about scandal or heartbreak anymore. It was about something pure, respect, memory, and the kind of bond that even distance couldn't destroy. In the final days of summer, paparazzi spotted Can and his father walking together along the coast near Bodrum. No cameras, no entourage, just two men talking quietly as the waves hit the shore. Can laughed, a rare, unguarded laugh, and his father placed a hand on his shoulder. Later that night, Can posted one last photo. It showed the sea at sunset and 3 words written beneath it: "Some stories never end." No one needed to ask which story he meant. Because the truth was already clear: sometimes, love doesn't fade. It just changes shape. And sometimes, even after years of silence, one sentence can bring everything back to life again. The sea had gone quiet that night in Bodrum, but the silence between father and son carried more weight than the waves. After a long walk, they sat on a bench facing the dark horizon. Can's father was the first to speak. "You know," he said softly, "when I said I trusted her, it wasn't just for you. It was for me too." Can didn't answer right away. He just looked down at his hands. "I know, Baba," he finally said. "But trust doesn't fix what time breaks." His father smiled faintly. "No, it doesn't. But it reminds us what was real. And sometimes, that's enough." The next morning, photos of them together flooded social media. The tabloids called it a father and son's reconciliation. But behind those headlines, a new rumor started spreading, that Demet and Can had been seen exchanging messages again. No one could prove it, but fans swore they had noticed matching locations in their Instagram stories: Can's sunset over Bodrum, and hours later, Demet posting a sky with the same color, the same light. Coincidence? Maybe. But it didn't feel like one. Days later, Demet was spotted leaving a small studio in Istanbul, looking calm but thoughtful. Reporters shouted her name, asking about the rumors. She stopped for a brief moment, smiled, and said, "Sometimes, people don't need to come back together to understand each other again." Then she walked away, leaving the crowd speechless. That evening, Can shared another post, a quote on a plain black background: "Some people never leave. They just change their place in your story." It was poetic, almost haunting. And once again, the world lost its mind. Fans began to wonder if the distance between them was finally closing, even if quietly. But those who understood the two of them knew, this wasn't about a love story reigniting. It was about peace after the storm. Behind the scenes, Can's father gave one last piece of advice before flying back to Istanbul. "Son," he said, "you can move on from love, but not from respect. Don't let fame steal that from you." Can hugged him, something he hadn't done in years. "I won't," he said. And for the first time, he meant it. In the end, the world stopped waiting for answers. The rumors faded, the noise grew distant, and what remained was the quiet truth between two people who had once changed each other's lives forever. Months passed, but that single sentence from Can's father, "Demet is the only one I ever trusted," still echoed in headlines, in interviews, in the hearts of millions. Yet for Can and Demet, it was no longer about what others said. It was about the silence that followed, the peace that finally returned after years of chaos. One evening, as Can prepared to leave Rome for a new film project, he found the old photo again, the one of him and Demet laughing during their early days on set. He didn't post it this time. He simply looked at it, smiled, and placed it carefully back into the album his father had once held. It wasn't regret. It was gratitude. Demet, far away in Istanbul, sat by her window watching the rain. She scrolled past hundreds of news articles, old photos, fan edits, then closed her phone. For a moment, she whispered something only the walls could hear: "Some stories end beautifully, even without an ending." That night, both of them, in different cities, looked at the same sky, clear, silent, endless. Maybe they would never meet again. Maybe they already had, in ways that words could never capture. And for Can's father, who had unknowingly reopened a door the world thought was closed forever, there was peace. Because he knew that sometimes, the truth doesn't bring people back together, It simply lets them go with dignity.